Hello, everyone. This is a young man named James Summerton, and he's going to talk about this in this video, the history of LGBT representation in horror cinema. And you are going to find it interesting.
Community has mostly been left out of horror movies. Unless we're in a doomed love affair a la Brokeback Mountain, or doomed to die in general like in Milk or Boy Don't Cry, LGBT characters don't get a whole lot of attention. Considering how niche the horror genre is, it's kind of amazing that we've gotten as much mainstream attention as we have, even when it's as coded as it is. It's usually pretty hidden, but if we look hard enough, we can find ourselves in these movies. Sometimes we don't have to look that hard at all. But there is one instance in which Hollywood has been more than happy to portray the LGBT community, in both horror and mainstream movies. It's not a new trend. In fact, it's been around long before the gay rights movement brought us into public light. We can always be the main draw for a movie, if we're the killer.
Okay, this is interesting. Well, let's check out. I'm going to look at his examples of who gets demonized in the LGBT community. Just a moment.
So I'm going to focus on a few prominent films that really grabbed the public's attention, starting in 1948 with Alfred Hitchcock's Rope, adapted from the play of the same name, which itself was based on the true story of Leopold and Loeb, a gay couple who in 1924 murdered a 14-year-old boy just to see if they could get away with it. Spoiler alert, they don't. Rope follows Brandon and Philip, two college students who murder one of their classmates as an intellectual exercise. They want to prove their superiority over the common man by committing the perfect murder. The sexual tension between Brandon and Philip is obvious to anyone with functioning eyes and ears.
Right. Okay, couple of gay men, that's the first one.
Safe, white-bread suburban heteronormativity came Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
Okay, the second one, Psycho.
Killing its main character halfway through the movie, and the most memorable shower scene this side of the X rating. But Marion Crane isn't the character that people walk away from Psycho talking about. It's Norman Bates, the manager of the Bates Motel, and his extremely unhealthy relationship with his mother.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
Core to the theme.
So again, it's a guy. And as he said, he's got this issue with his mommy, of course. I mean, isn't that a part of, the trope of being a gay man is he has an unhealthy relationship with his mommy. And of course, that bothers people too, because basically a guy's supposed to grow up, ditches mommy, and finds a daughter, a grown woman, to be his daughter, Let's see what his next example is.
Burns, played by Al Pacino, on the case. So Al Pacino moves to the gay area of town, goes to a few leather bars, makes friends with a gay guy, and spends most of the movie ignoring his wife, while hunting down the mystery killer, who spends the movie killing gay men. Eventually it's revealed that the killer is himself a gay man with schizophrenia. He's arrested, but then the gay guy Al Pacino had become friends with turns up dead, and the movie ends with a not-so-subtle hint that Al Pacino may have been the killer all along.
Well, there you go. Wow, a third gay man. I see a trend forming here. Mr. Summerton, do you not see a trend that you are building here? I thought this was about the LGBT community. When are the women going to get involved? I'm starting to question, what's this about? Next.
The amount of gay villains in movies. But transgender characters were still open for exploitation. 1983's Sleepaway Camp, one of a dozen or so Friday the 13th ripoffs, opened on two children, Angela and Peter, boating on a lake with their father and his boyfriend.
Okay, we're talking about the trans community. Is it going to be a trans woman, Or is it going to be a trans man? We will see.
Public assumption that transgender people were sick, depraved, likely homicidal.
Aha. I've seen this movie. So it ends up that this young girl ends up being a guy. So it's a trans woman that they're worried about, right? That they find disgusting. And what happens in, it's not usually horror films for trans men. Like if a man ends up being a woman in a man's costume, there's none of the fear and disgust involved. So James Summerton, you know this. So why are you talking about the LGBT community when it's really, it's just the male version? Only half of the LGBT community is something that society fears and loathes, right? Next example. I wonder if the women are ever going to show up here.
A transgender individual. But as Lecter said, he wanted to be. He applied for gender reassignment surgery at multiple hospitals, but was universally declined because of his mental state.
We're talking about Silence of the Lambs now. Man again.
Republicans think you can't just get a sex change. There's a massive amount of psychological testing before doctors will move forward with the procedure, especially in the case of male to female gender confirmation. So when Bill was denied this procedure, he decided to make himself into a woman, any way he could. There was massive backlash against the film upon release, as the LGBT community accused the movie of both transphobia and homophobia. The director, Jonathan Demme, did his best to defend the film.
Well, yeah, homophobia, it's turning out, is really phobia of the male sex. Because I haven't seen a female example yet, Mr. Summerton. And of course, there's a lot of self-loathing going on.
But most people still look at it as a piece of overtly anti-LGBT cinema. Although it was stated very clearly that from a psychological perspective, Buffalo Bill is not a transgender person, it's still a thorny situation. Bill's gender identity is only commented on by cisgender people in the book and film, and so cisgender people are, in essence, deciding whether or not a person is transgender.
Okay, this political stuff I'm not worried about. We'll get into the next one.
Hollywood films for years to come. The bisexual Catherine Trammell in 1992's Basic Instinct drew the ire of lesbian and bisexual groups especially, pointing out how bisexuals had minimal, if any, representation in mainstream media, and how the biggest bisexual character was a murderer.
Whoa, hold it now. So finally, at the very tail end, we get a female. And you know something? I mean, it's pretty, I don't know if embarrassing is the right word, to use this girl as an example. You know, I saw this film decades ago, and I can't say I remembered that much, but I didn't even realize she was bisexual in it, Mr. Summerton. And the reason I didn't is because beautiful women dancing together in erotic fashion that is enticing to guys. I mean, that straight women do that to turn guys on. So, and I just forgot, was there a scene where she was actually making out with a woman? Because did she not kill guys in particular? So, I mean, and this character, so, bisexual women do not hold any kind of contempt by society or from society. They're seen as sexy. This character, remember Buffalo Bill, you said, is full of self-loathing. There's no self-loathing here. She's in charge. She's very confident. She's actually not crazy like he is. She's someone who's just enjoying murder. And of course, it's lesbians that are ticked off, as you say, particularly, because finally a female person is being shown in a bad light. But no one thinks back at this film and think, wow, how grotesque she was. She made my skin crawl. Guys who watched this film thought, wow, she was really sexy in that. You know, she was a femme fatale. So, I mean, there's no, for you to try and make this whole thing, the LGBT should not be there. People do not fear bisexual women at all, or even lesbians. And trans men at best suffer no more than the actual man, for lack of a better term. It's all men. Homophobia, Mr. Summerton, is fear of male sexuality. Get it? I mean, so this is my critique on your critique. Do you understand? Like the gay men, the men in the LGBT should leave the LGBT and form their own, because all the real suffering that homosexual people suffer are suffered from the male half of it. Get it? I mean, you're proving it with your video. So please, all you guys who try to include the women, knock it off. Thank you.